there has never been a more amazing or more horrendous time to be a marketer. And I've really actually given this a lot of thought. I tend to get a little cerebral on these things myself. And what I would posit to you is that consider that since the digital and social media revolutions, something that I feel like I've really been out there in front of for a long time, but what the impact has been for marketers is that we are sort of now working in this Pandora's box of paradoxes. And I think it really speaks to why do we feel sometimes paralyzed or just, sort of frustrated and confused. And I think we are, it's this, we are marketing in a box of paradoxes. Let me give you a few for instances, and I know this is an audience who are quick studies, so I bet you can kind of complete the paradoxes with me. So on the one hand, here's one. Brands are supposed to produce more content in more places than ever. Yet on the other hand, roughly 65% of people, at least according to one Yankelovich study, feel bombarded with too much marketing and advertising and consider it out of control. That's a paradox. That's a paradox for a marketer. Here's another. Sometimes we brands are now legitimate publishers. Who wants to guess what the other half of this paradox is? Sometimes we're still advertisers. It's not one or the other. We're actually both. In a connected world, global brand stories are indeed global. This was a paradox I spent a lot of time in the throes of at the Estee Lauder company, so you know the other half of this one, right? We still also need to make our stories local. Brands should communicate in campaigns. That's what we always did. That's what we still do. Come on, fill in the blanks. What's the other half of this one? All the time. We also have to communicate continuously. That's an interesting one. And I know you can fill in the other half of this blank. Marketing is art. Come on. Thank you. Marketing is science. Huh. Are we all right brain and left brain now? Maybe. And here's a favorite of mine. So great content creation is elite. This is, for those of us who really grew up in this business, how we always looked at it, especially coming from the luxury world. I mean, great content creation was the province of, an elite ruling class of high-end, creative talent and the marketers who had the pockets to afford them. And this is an example. Now, I can't say I know this dollar statistic personally, so you'll have to forgive me if I get it wrong. It's what's been reported in the trades. This was a campaign that Chanel did a few years ago. Baz Luhrmann directed, Nicole Kidman was the star. It was long form. It was a beautiful piece of content. Anyone want to guess what the total reported production and talent budget was for this? It's like, I know, jelly beans in a jar. Here's what I heard. What? 42 million. That's more than I've ever spent on a campaign, I just want you to know. But then, on the other hand, there was this one, which I absolutely adored, and if time were not an issue, I would have showed you both pieces of content. But I think the tweet here is actually what makes this an interesting story. Beautiful piece of content that was not produced by Tesla's agency. It was actually produced by two young filmmakers who had some equipment, made basically on spec a piece of content because they love the brand, and that's really important. Posted it, tweeted it, Elon Musk saw it, discovered it, and arguably as a result, this piece of content got as many views for Tesla as a more traditional piece of content might have gained in more traditional ways. And here's the kicker to this: total budget. So a case in opposites clearly, but the point is both are beautiful pieces of content. Great content creation can be elite, but great content creation also can be democratic. And then lastly, and this is a phrase we use at Taco Bell and within the Yum brands all the time, we need to drive sales overnight. We do. We are in a retail business. Our turns are fast. We are looking at sales reports all the time. My husband was joking. I'm looking at all of our friends stuck back in New York in the snowstorm. I'm just thinking, what about Taco Bell sales for the day? So this is, of course, the real pressure those of us in a fast-paced business must contend with. But then at the same time, we also need to drive brand over time. So perhaps you've gathered where I'm going with this. The answer to this is yes on all. And sometimes it helps to just identify that this is at the heart of the issue for us as marketers. In fact, I would suggest to you that the only way to win today is to recognize, recognition comes first, right? And then embrace and integrate these paradoxes. In our digitally driven world that many of you have helped create and perpetuate in so many wonderful ways, but the burden and the opportunity on marketers like me is that we have to be a publisher and an advertiser. We have to be global and local. We have to think in campaigns and in continuous content. Of course, we have to integrate the art with the science. We need to integrate the elite with the democratic. And ultimately, we need to tell more stories, but in the right ways and the right places. And of course, this is where you, our valued partners, are so instrumental to our success.